in Jerusalem with former Arkansas governor and possible, probable U.S. presidential candidate, Governor Mike Huckabee. Governor Huckabee, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So you're a regular visitor to this country. What brings you this time?
Well, I usually try to come at least once a year and bring a large group of Americans, most of whom have not been. And then often I come either individually, just to show my support for Israel, to meet with government and military officials or friends that I've made through the years, because I feel an extraordinary kinship between the United States and Israel, and even personally with many of the Israeli people.
So you speak about kinship. Unfortunately, there are some undercurrents that aren't so friendly. Specifically, I'm talking about Prime Minister Netanyahu's invitation to speak at Congress. What are your feelings about that, both from the perspective of the decision to invite him by the Speaker and the Prime Minister's decision to accept? Was that the right thing to do? Was it done in the right way?
Well, first of all, it's the right thing for the Speaker to make the invitation. The American government, a lot of people don't understand, made up of three distinct but equal branches of government. And so the Congress has an equal power than the executive or the judicial branches under our system. Is it typical, or is it the normal, or maybe the traditional way? Maybe, maybe not. But the point is, the Prime Minister of Israel, I think, is a very important voice for Americans to hear as it relates to Iran. Currently, in America, and specifically in Congress, the policies of the U.S. and how we are related to Iran are being debated. Having the perspective of our closest friend and ally is an important perspective to have. The President should welcome this. There should be no fear that there's anything to somehow be concerned about if our best friend comes and gives us the honest advice of the next door neighbor over here. That's essentially what we're getting. And whatever issues may exist between the President and the Prime Minister, those are secondary. Those are not even important. What's important is whether Iran is allowed to move forward with nuclear capacity. And I'd like to think that there is no one who finds that that's a good situation. The President has continually said it's not a good situation. So we should hear the voice of the Prime Minister.
Right. What do you think explains then there's been this whole feeling of hostility, not only towards the visit? Obviously, this visit has triggered a lot of almost a hysterical response from the White House, even in terms of leaking inaccurate information initially to the press about how the invitation was issued. But even beforehand, in the whole process of the negotiations, Israel has been sort of felt, or certainly many Israelis have felt, that we've been pushed to the sidelines. The Saudis have felt the same way. If we are on the same page, what do you think explains that kind of behavior from the White House?
If I knew how to explain this White House and this administration, I'd write a book about it and tell the world, but I clearly cannot. There's so many things, both domestically and in relationship to foreign policy, that escapes me from the thinking of this White House. Most notably, that we would ever sit down and trust Iran. Why would we trust Cuba? Why would we think that they're going to change their abusive and incredibly hurtful ways just because we suddenly make nice with them? I think it's naive, and I think history will prove that it's naive.
Do you think naivety is the cause of this sometimes very erratic looking foreign policy?
I don't want to think beyond that, because it would then portend a very, very nefarious motive, which I just simply don't want to ascribe to my own country.
Right. And on a different but related issue, which you touched upon a little earlier, it's been one of the hot topics of the Israeli election campaign here in Israel, has been whether or not, or to what degree, political actors in the US are trying to essentially unseat Benjamin Netanyahu, or more specifically to achieve a left-wing government. First of all, in your opinion, how true do you think that is? And how would you feel if that were indeed to be the case?
I have no personal knowledge that there is any official U.S. involvement in the election. I hear the rumors and the allegations, but I don't have any firsthand knowledge of it. If it is, that would be very serious. It would constitute an illegal activity on the part of the United States government to involve itself in the direct participation of an election in an ally. That would just be unthinkable. It's not unusual, not even inappropriate that political parties anywhere in the world would hire American political operatives if they have expertise and could help them. What crosses the line is if it had anything to do with the official government, if taxpayer dollars were used, if people in the government started trying to steer the election a particular way. That would be very problematic.
And speaking now in more general terms about the relationship between Jerusalem and this specific White House, I know you haven't officially confirmed your intention to stand as president. Let's assume for whatever you found yourself in the president's chair. Where do you think it's gone wrong, and how would you seek to fix that relationship?
Well, I think it's gone wrong because we have put pressure on Israel to do things that Israel cannot do, which is essentially give up the very precious little bit of land that it has, that it absolutely needs for its own security, and put very little pressure on those who would annihilate Israel to stand down, back off, and leave Israel alone. I think we need to stand with our friends and make it very clear that there will be no quarter given to those who would try to, in any way, threaten the sovereign peace and sanctuary of Israel as a nation.
And one very final question, because I know you have to run. The events that have taken place in Denmark yesterday and overnight, there's this feeling that freedom of speech, Western values, the values that the US and Israel share, are under concerted attack, and that threat is growing. How do you think, how can the free world fight against this kind of a threat?
You know, the nature of terrorism is that if your enemy can get you to behave differently than you would have behaved, the terrorists have been successful. And what we're seeing is that the terrorists are being successful. Even in France, after the Charlie Hebdo murders, the tragedy was that a lot of people said, "Je suis Charlie," meaning, yes, I am Charlie, but would they publish the cartoons? Would they take the stand? No, they wouldn't. So in essence, they've changed their behavior in order to accommodate the terrorists. The terrorists win when that happens. We have to be willing to stand against it, to practice free speech, to know that there's a risk and a vulnerability there. But without it, then the terrorists win, and they don't even have to kill everybody, just enough to change our behavior.
Right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us, and enjoy the rest of your trip.
Thank you very much. Thanks.